Nation! What's going on, everybody? This is Brandon.
Stefan.
Welcome back to Comics Kings. Welcome back to Christ on Infinite Rants. This is the show where we talk about a specific topic in the comic world, whether that's like a trending event or maybe something fun like today's episode. Very informative, very chill conversation. This is also Whiplash Wednesday with the PCP Army Bad Batch. So we did not have the Blame Fable show because that is getting moved to the Blame Fable Tonight show, teaching Jimmy Fallon a thing or two stationed to you, Fable. So we're going to head right over to TM Nerdy at his usual time slot. I believe he's at 3 o'clock. And I think he's sitting down with Justin from No Good Comics this week. So we're going to be checking that out. If it's not Justin, I forget who his next guest was, but it's going to be a great show because they were recording this before we can watch it, but it's going to be a great show. Always is. Chatting with the comic book community. Now you're over here with us. And then we are going to go to Big Herm. Again, I don't know what he's doing yet, so we're in for a surprise. Station to Herm. Oh, wait, he's talking about Nick Spencer wrapping up. That's who he's talking about. He's talking about Nick Spencer wrapping up, so that's a hot topic right there. Kind of like the clothing store or merchandise, recreational activity store.
I've got some good shirts there.
Yeah, right? I had a Deadpool tank top that I left in Ohio. I was so pissed. I know, I was so pissed. I was like, fuck, man. And then after that, Nick Comic Culture drops at 5 o'clock, also drops at 11. So you get double Nick, never enough Nicks, never enough Nick content. And then we have the Tomorrow show later on that night where we're doing What Are You Reading? This is going to be all about kind of spooky season. So we're going to be talking about a lot of horror books. I know I got my books. Tune in later to see what the panel got and what books we are going to be talking about as well. And then the Tomorrow show, November, What Are You Reading is going to be all about giving thanks because we're in Thanksgiving era. So I want to do something special where we're just talking about books that are meaningful to us. So books that we started that warms our hearts. So I know what I'm going to be talking about there. Panel's going to be looking great. We're kind of planning that in advance. Stefan, how are you doing today, brother?
I'm good. Glad to be here. Glad to talk about this particular creator today.
Yes.
And he's a bit of a hot topic lately.
Oh, he is such a hot topic, and we talked about, that's the thing of the show, hot topics. So 2 weeks ago, we talked about James Tynion IV and everything that he did before Something is Killing the Children. So make sure you guys go check that out if you haven't already. I hope you guys found the James Tynion book for you. Today, we're coming at you guys with one of our personal favorite creators. We're going to be talking about the guy who created some of your favorite characters. You may not know it, but he did. He created Miles Morales. That's what he's most known for. But we're going to tell you everything else that you need to know about this guy because he doesn't always put out key issues like Ultimate Fallout 4, right? Or the first appearance of Jessica Jones in Alias. But he puts out some of the best stories. And he was the helm of Marvel in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to be talking all about Brian Michael Bendis. Link, real quick, what would you say is your favorite Bendis story?
Of course I think most creators thrive with their creator-owned stuff, but I'm fond of his New Avengers. That made me. I grew up X-Men all the time. I would check out Avengers and other stuff here or there, but he's what made me an Avengers fan. So why I still really check out Avengers to this day.
Right. I think I'm with you there. I think his New Avengers is probably my favorite. It is very bombastic. It's very adventurous, and it just brings in a lot of characters that we just did not see in Marvel previously. Right. And he had 2 Avengers titles at a time going on. And that's enough to say he had a full cast of Marvel characters. Like there's not a time where I looked at that story and said, who's missing?
Right.
Yeah, we got
playing with everybody. Yeah.
Everyone. And he was the one who made Century a relevant character after Paul Jenkins. So big station, bro.
Station to that was genius marketing point because I remember when Century was coming out, even as a kid, I was like 11 to 12. I was like, a hero we've never heard of. Little did I know that I was just part of the marketing. It was genius though. But when he Thor was gone at the time and he needed someone to fill that spot, and he just took Century out of obscurity and really made him a prominent character. So I love the Century. I'm a big fan of the Century, so I appreciate
100%. I think Century's one of my favorite Avengers characters. Also, you guys, this is everything before Brian Michael Bendis went to DC because we know that a lot of newer readers know him simply for Superman, simply for Leviathan, simply for Justice League, and most notably Naomi, who is going to be a key character in the DC mythos for years to come, and who is a fantastic character named after Dwayne McDuffie, all-time legend. So we're here to talk about everything he did with Marvel because it's fantastic, it's legendary. We want you to know all about it. Starting off his career, by the way, guys, this is not a show without coffee, so cheers to you, Missing Lynk. Boom. Okay, we got it. Boom.
Oh, one more. Click.
Boom.
Here we go.
So started his career out with Ultimate Spider-Man. Now this is before Miles, so this is in 2000 when he kicked it off with Mark Bagley. And this has gone for 131 issues. The omnibus will be out, I believe, later this month, if not November. So nice. I am very sought out for that. I already have mine on pre-order. And this basically gave you the modern take on Spider-Man, kind of revisiting his origin with AF-15, building up his mythos, and kind of reshaping how we know Spider-Man in today's era. Like, yeah, he cut out some things. He introduced Venom in the 30s. I think it was 31 through 38 he introduced Venom. So obviously if you're playing on normal Spider-Man continuity, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But this played such a great role as Peter as a teenager and really revolutionized the character, gave us a breathtaking, fresh start for newer readers, for kids to kind of look up and age with Peter Parker, right? Because if you think about it, at the time we were just getting ready for a brand new day. We were getting ready to kind of age up Peter a little bit. Yeah. This kind of gave you a Spider-Man to where kids from the 90s can look up, or like even from the 90s could look up and say, wow, there's something that I can grow with. And I think
I speak from I agree with that, because I was always interested in Spider-Man, but I didn't restart. I was always X-Men. But I started dabbling a little bit when I was older with Spider-Man, but it was like almost overwhelming because I felt that I missed and so many villains, and Ultimate Spider-Man for me was that jumping on point for me to get reintroduced, acclimated to the Spider-Man mythos. And so it's like I would read it in the Ultimate comics, have a little bit of context. So it's like if I saw them over in the regular 616, a character I had only read in the Ultimates, I wouldn't be so intimidated because I have some, quick summer info.
Right, you have some backlog, kind of like some background knowledge. What's a backlog, bro? What is a backlog, bro? I don't know. Hashtag. Okay, yeah. But I think the biggest strength about Spider-Man as a character, whether it's Miles Morales, Ben Reilly, Peter Parker, is there's Spider-Man for every decade that you can age with.
Absolutely.
And that's something that people don't really understand. What makes Spider-Man so personable, it's not the skin color. It can be the skin color, but at times it's someone you're around your age, right, or shortly older, that is struggling but making everything work and overcoming those barriers. And Ultimate Spider-Man was that story of everything is going wrong for Spider-Man, of a teenage Spider-Man still in high school, but he is going to use his wit to get around. He's going to use his friendship. He's going to use his family, right? You're going to go back and you're going to look at what makes Peter, not Spider-Man, but what makes Peter Parker a great character. And that is what Bendis does great, is you get attached to Peter Parker. Spider-Man is the icing on the cake in this book. We end up getting one of my wifeys, Black Cat, in the mid parts. Now that was just a whole fun bit. Hey, you know what? There's this one scene, and if you guys have read it, you know what I'm talking about. It's the rooftop scene where she figures out who he is. But if you haven't read it, I don't want to spoil the surprise. If you guys used to watch Hall of Fame, Hall of Shame, you know that we use that a little bit.
Is that what is the Ultimate run where they kind of started to play around with the idea of her becoming a kingpin, kind of sort of? Or
she wasn't really a kingpin. She was more of an interest.
Right.
She was more of an romantic interest of Peter, and then she figured out that he was way younger, and she was like, "Oh shit," and dipped. But she came back later on in the run after the whole Kitty Pryde fiasco, because later on we figure out that Spider-Man's gonna be running with the X-Men, who are also around the same age as him. And then we have this big bombastic thing, and if you guys have read Invincible, this has a very Invincible ending, almost. I think that when you talk about the best modern comics of all time, right? Like Saga came later. Saga's great, but
Yeah.
when you talk about pure superhero stories,
Classic.
unmatched top two, Ultimate Spider-Man and
Yeah.
Invincible are right there.
Yeah.
And then you have the animated show that came out for Ultimate Spider-Man, which is actually really good. I enjoyed it.
I don't mixed things on that one. It's a hit or miss for me, but I actually really enjoyed it. It was kind of inspired by the Ultimate Spider-Man. It was the animated series that came on MTV like
Yeah.
2003. It was one season, 12 episodes, but I thought it was dope. Patrick Harris was the voice of Spider-Man. He was amazing.
Right. But this was my favorite book, and that's even going against a book that you guys would probably think would be my favorite, because my favorite character is Daredevil, and Brian Michael Bendis wrote a very seminal run on Daredevil with art by Alex Maylev. David Mack could come in here and there. But it was mainly Brian Michael Bendis and Alex Maylev. And if you guys know that they're working together, the reason why they work so well together, right, and they can make Leviathan look the way it does, it's because of their time on Daredevil. Daredevil was such a gritty story. It kind of reinvigorated the relationship between Daredevil and Bullseye and how we know it. You got a lot of Typhoid Mary in there. You just got like a whole lot of Daredevil just going against the world. So what happens when the Kingpin escapes? What's his safe plan? What's his safety valve for when Daredevil tries to out him? Right. So what this run did so well is we always seen Kingpin kind of go on the offensive.
Yeah.
Right. This was the first time we saw Daredevil be aggressive.
Right.
And like their roles were almost reversed.
Yeah.
Kingpin took a step back. Vanessa took a step back. Bullseye took a step back. Spider-Man played into everything, going at them. And then we dealt with Daredevil getting his identity leaked and having him go through his life as Matt Murdock to get him out of the situation with Daredevil. Mm-hmm. So you get a lot of cool stuff. You get a lot of Owl in there, Owlsley. So I really, really enjoyed it. 100%. Like, what did you think of his Daredevil?
I have not read all of it. I read like the first 2 volumes 2 years ago, but I loved it. That was like one of my introductions to Daredevil. I always thought he was a cool character, but I was just picky about what I read. And this was like around the time I was just, a few years after the 2008, I think I read it. So it was like a few years after, not Young Avengers. New Avengers was still kind of in its prime, and that coming off that Civil War era where there's 2 separate teams. So I dug it. I dug a lot. I read that and I was like, I get why Daredevil was talked about.
This was part of the Marvel Knights. This is right after Marvel Knights. So
yeah.
This is long before Civil War ever took place. Because eventually went to Ed Brubaker following that, where we kind of dealt with the hand and kind of dealt with the nitty gritty post Daredevil getting outed. But I really like this. You got to see Echo and their relationship kind of well. You got to see Daredevil with another romantic partner, and then another romantic partner, and then Elektra coming in and kind of again.
My man, not to cut you out. I just interrupt about Echo because I was like, that was cool because I know that Daredevil came out before the New Avengers run, but I didn't read it until after. But I had seen Echo in New Avengers, and so in 2008 when I read the Daredevil run, I didn't know that was where she came from. I was just kind of reading Bendis stuff, so I read it. I was like, oh, like make that connection was just
right. She was introduced by David Mack, but between the two, they would kind of utilize Echo. Yeah, David Mack creation is Echo. And Echo. Yep, David Mack and Joe Quesada. That's their little baby right there. But eventually Bendis got to play with Echo a little bit, and then we kind of jumped into Avengers Disassembled, which this yes, it reset the numbering, but it also disbanded the X-Men team, hence the title Disassembled. This is the story arc that, if you've seen WandaVision, everything stems from. What I mean everything stems from is that's where you really get to see the reason why Wanda is kind of a threat and kind of like a fear name. Like when you think of Wanda, you don't think, oh, she's going to be scary. But when you read a Marvel comic, and if you read Avengers Disassembled, you read House of M, Bendis works.
A liability. Yeah.
She's so powerful in her own mind, like in her own thoughts, creates that power,
Like her subconscious is, is that powerful to manifest.
Right. Which it gets you thinking, right? is how powerful do our thoughts drive us on a daily life? Like, that's what I thought of when I read House of M and I read Avengers Disassembled, right? Can our thoughts drive us to the point where we kill our husband? Or do we make believe this world where we have children? Or we get manipulated by someone and that causes us to lash out and defeat the next, not even defeat, but repress the next generation of a race.
Yeah.
Right? Giving us one of the famous lines, no more mutants, right? Can our thoughts kind of not really drive us to have those powers, but can they drive us to think like the worst, right? And do the worst. And I thought that was very thought-provoking, especially in Avengers Disassembled, the way that Agatha was able to manipulate Wanda and the way Wanda just lashed out on everybody.
Yeah. That I didn't, because I wasn't, too much of a. I read that shortly after I got introduced to New Avengers, but like I said, that made me a fan of the Avengers. So I wasn't too familiar with the Avengers up until that point. So I didn't understand until years later how big that moment was when she snapped and Hawkeye sacrificed himself to take down that Kree warship and stuff. She-Hulk going crazy or just raging out, and
Hank
Vision.
Pym.
Yeah, just so it was a big moment, but
right.
That I know a lot. That I remember reading on like message boards at the time how a lot of people were upset to what he was doing with Wanda and Clint, but I think that led to some really set them up to be in some greater positions in the long run. Like,
well, maybe not Wanda. We've yet to see Wanda with the trial of Magneto. But I think it was a great character development for her, because sometimes we need to do that to characters, is to bring them to a new status that we haven't seen previously, right? Without Disassembled, you get no WandaVision, right? Wanda
my bad, go on.
No, cut me off. Go for it.
All right. She had always kind of, they always kind of toyed with the idea of Wanda kind of always teetering on the edge of being, powerful to like a guy, as powerful as a god to an extent. But Bendis kind of really tipped that over the edge. It's like, let's take her there, and so I really respect. I loved House of M. That was
House of M with Oliver Copiel
on
fantastic. Art. It was so great. This was everyone dealing with the events of Avengers Disassembled. In the way that now you see the Illuminati, which the House of M came out in 2007. The Illuminati was formed in 2005. We're going to get into that when we talk about the new Avengers. But this was kind of, okay, Charles Xavier was on the Illuminati, but now this is the heads of the X-Men, the heads of the Avengers, right? Kind of newly reformed Avengers, because the Mighty Avengers was a thing now. So we have that team dealing with Wanda, because she was the biggest question mark. Do we leave her in her own guilt? What do we do with her? Is she an X-Men or is she an Avenger? Where do we place her?
Yeah.
And in doing so, it causes a House of M, meaning this is centered not really around the outside decisions of the Avengers and X-Men, but the decisions in her household, right? With Quicksilver, not as much Polaris, but Magneto, Quicksilver, and herself.
I don't think they had retconned that she was a sibling yet at that point. I think that came like after. Really? Okay.
I think it was, but if somebody in the chat wants to correct me, by the way, if you guys are here for the pre-recorded station, if you guys are catching the replay, big thanks to you guys. Make sure you guys hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. Road to 400. I don't really look at my subs until people say, "Hey, Brandon, you're on your way to 400." Thank you, Fable, for letting me know the other day. Blame Fable. But House of M, man, it was just so. You just got to do stuff like that, man, and it was great.
That was actually a lot of people. Okay, so I guess it's kind of like a whole trifecta. Not trifecta, because I was saying in the aspect of Blade started off the superhero craze with superhero movies. Like, if it wasn't for Blade, we wouldn't have gotten X-Men, and then the success of X-Men made them go, let's put out Spider-Man. And it's like, ever since those 3 movies have come out, it's been superhero movies for the last over 20 years. Like, they've just gotten bigger every year, and it's due to the success of those 3 movies. The whole event craze that we kind of suffer from lately is due to House of M.
Right.
If you go back and look at it, they weren't really doing events like that every year. It's like, after House of M, we had Civil War. After Civil War, we had World War Hulk. We had Secret Invasion. Dark Reign. Dark Reign was a weird one because it was more like just stuff happening wide, like there was no particular story. But you got to pay off with that and
Was
other.
Secret Invasion 2009? I
That
thought
was
Civil War came before House of M.
nope. So it was House of M, and then Civil War was 2006. That led in. So they were split up, and then you had World War Hulk and Secret Invasion, and then 2009 Dark Reign, and then Siege was 2010.
Gotcha. See, that's why I rely on Link. That's why he's the better half of the show. He teaches me everything I need to know.
I've been around.
Yeah, but then after Disassembled, that launched the new Avengers, which we got
Yes.
a new team of just probably one of the more reckless teams, I would say. A team that just didn't gel together, or that you wouldn't think gelled together, and
I can agree with that, but at the same time, they added some people that it was kind of like, why have these people never been on Avengers before? You know,
right,
as
and
many members.
honestly, like when you talk about books, like you don't need to have like when I look at a DC book and I see that, okay, Batman's on the Justice League, but
Yeah.
would Justice League still sell if Batman wasn't there? I think yes, because you know why? I always look at New Avengers and the way that it played with the characters there. You had characters that barely sold in their own series, that couldn't last a miniseries. It wouldn't even put up sales to have a miniseries every 5 years. What
It's almost
Spider-Woman has never had a good ongoing series that's really lasted. I'm
look
sorry,
at
she
Luke
has one
Cage.
now.
New Avengers
Luke
was almost a
Cage.
Luke Cage book. He like did great. I mean, he had Alias as well, but he was on. He was shining in New Avengers, man. Like he
Right,
was leading the Avengers at one point.
right. But Luke Cage never really upheld his own series.
Nope, nope.
Right, these are all great characters, but
Yeah,
they haven't sold well as individuals. Right,
right.
you had you bits with Ronin, but again, Hawkeye was never a character that people really got invested with.
He was a fan
Sentry,
favorite. Yeah,
he was a fan favorite, but he never
yeah,
sold them.
yeah.
Sentry was a character that no one really knew a whole
Had
lot
a lot of
about.
potential.
Had a
Yeah,
lot of potential. It was untapped potential, to quote
absolutely.
like Snoke from Star Wars. Um, you know, who else was on that team that we had? We had
Uh,
we had
Echo was in
well
there.
we had Cap, right? We had Captain America,
Yeah,
Iron
Cap.
Man,
We had Cap, Iron
and then we
Man,
had Wolverine. But these are all
Spider
characters
Man.
that
Yeah,
you had characters that sold, but
yeah.
it was more of like, okay, we have these niche characters. Most of the big moments in the books came from the niche characters, came from Spider-Woman, came from Echo, came from Elektra, came from Daredevil when he had his segment with Luke Cage.
Yes.
Um, and all of this was to build up Secret Invasion. It was to build up Norman Osborn kind of playing devil's advocate, Tony Stark being the director of Shield.
Yeah, yeah. That I actually really dug that. I know it doesn't gel well with a lot of people, but at the time, it made sense to me as a reader because I was like, this man sided with the government. He's like one of the popular faces of the superhero community. He's rich. He's a billionaire. He's a philanthropist. Why would they not give it to him? Like, he was the right man for the, maybe not the perfect man for the job, but I really liked Iron Man's Director of Shield run. I think it was just a cool title, to be honest. But I think it just had some cool moments, like
Right.
Tony Stark's the tech guy. Why that's like a great mashup. Like Shield would just get better from
Right.
having a guy like Tony Stark behind them. Like, yeah, that was a cool moment. Question about Ronin, real quick. Do you think Bendis intended for Ronin to be Matt Murdock initially, and then switched out to Echo at last minute?
I think it was. I think it was.
Okay, okay, I do as well.
I think it made a lot of sense. Well, Ronin originally Hawkeye, or was it
No,
Echo
so
first?
Ronin was created as, that's why I think it was Matt Murdock, because this was around the time when he was trying to distance himself from Daredevil. He's not I'm not Daredevil, even though a lot of evidence was pointing that it was to him. So like this would have allowed him to, because he was at the raft when all this shit popped off, right? The whole that's brought these guys together in the first arc. Like he was on the island with them. This would have allowed, he was still in a lot of legal trouble. This would have allowed him to operate as a superhero,
Right.
would get the job done. And the idea of it is like, whoever ever needs the Ronin costume, if you ever want to wear it, whatever reason, you don't want to rock your old alias, you're just trying to hide something, then you can use the Ronin costume. So it went to Echo first, and then she didn't need it anymore. She was comfortable with being herself, I guess. I have got to reread the run. It's been so long. I usually do a yearly read, like once a year. I'll read the run. Haven't done it in like 2 years though.
Oh,
But
I'm almost done. I'm almost done. I have like 20 issues left of the new Avengers. I'm right,
nice.
and then I've Dark Avengers that I'm on, and
I
I'm
love the
so
Dark
stoked.
Avengers. That was
I
good.
read the first 2 issues the other day, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah, it
yo,
was bro. He was on fire. He was on fire.
yeah. Now I got to read issues 47 and 48. That's how the reading order goes. Of New Avengers.
Uh, but Ronin. No, so Clint came back, but Bishop was he kind of respected what Kate Bishop and the Young Avengers were about, and so he was like, you know what, man, you can keep the title. If I inspired you that much, I can still get the job done. He was like, I don't even need a superhero name. I'll just rock with you guys. But luckily, Maya was like, yo, I got this costume for you, and he just started. I actually really like him as Ronin as well. I wish we got to see
Right.
that a little bit longer in the movies.
I think my favorite part of his New Avengers run, it wasn't in any of the events. It was right when Echo figured out that the Elektra, the posing Elektra operating with the hand was a scroll. So the whole premise of this arc was they were in Japan because the hand was kind of rising up, and Hydra and the hand were kind of partners. Yeah, Hydra and the hand were kind of partners. Spider Woman was in league with Viper, who is Madam Hydra. So we're kind of dealing with that. And then we have Elektra leading the hand. But it turns out that that was a scroll, which what that launched was it launched Bendis' new title. It launched a whole build up to Secret Invasion. It gave
At
us
the
a
time,
team. Yeah.
sorry, the hype for Secret Invasion for me. Maybe I was too young, but I was like, yo, who's gonna be a scroll? Like it could be anybody. I was
Right.
looking back on it, I had to be someone that he was writing. Like he couldn't just be like, you know what, Brubaker, Daredevil's been a scroll because it would kind of undermine all the work Brubaker had been doing with the character at the
Right.
time or something like that. So it had to be someone he had been writing. But it was still an exciting time. Like, you know, you didn't know who to trust. You didn't know who on the Avengers squad was really
Right.
like, because you know, you're sitting there thinking like, I luckily he still worked with her after this, but I really grew to love Jessica Jones, man. And
Right.
to find out she was Varenke, whatever, spoiler, that really messed me up, man. You know, I was like, oh, is Luke Cage a damn scroll now? All the work with Luke Cage he's done is just kind of that's been a scroll this whole time. So it was really an
Right.
exciting time in comics. Bendis knows how to create excitement when he's doing his
Right.
job right. Man,
Now, I read Secret Invasion. A buddy of mine lent me the trade a few years ago, and I read it then with no context, and I loved it. But
right.
recently, I went back and I've been binging the whole run, and this was like
The ride.
this was my hip surgery binge. That has just been my hip surgery recovery binge. Lasting like 2 surgeries at this point. And I think I made a pretty good dent in it because I'm almost done.
Yeah.
I think I'm like 80% there. But Secret Invasion, the hype for it, man, was just so good.
Yes.
You know, you got the Mighty Avengers. You got, and I don't care what anybody says. I love what Kelly Thompson is doing. I love what Kelly Sue DeConnick did with Carol Danvers being Captain Marvel. I'm sorry, but Miss Marvel is where she really shined. I don't care what anybody else says. Her miniseries with Brian Reed, Lee Weeks on art, and I think Jim Shang did a lot of it too.
Yeah.
You know, that was fantastic. I love it to death. I think that was the best we've ever had. Kelly Thompson, I love what you're doing too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
I know you're watching this, but
love you,
yeah, nothing but love station. But but yo, she was leading the Mighty Avengers. She had Wonder Man. She had Wasp. Janet Van Dyne, who was a
man. It's not
you
talked
had
about a lot, but that was a
you had
great
Ares, bro. You had
we had
Ares.
Ares, Century, and Wonder Man on the same team, bro.
Right,
Like,
and everyone who was pissed off that Tony Stark was director of Shield, you wouldn't have had that if he wasn't director of Shield. Let's
yeah.
get that straight right now. That's facts right there.
I'm a big fan of the because I don't want to say the character, but I've only read the Michael Avon Omen. I can't pronounce his name, probably butchered it. But he did a miniseries with Travis Moore, not Travis Moore. Oh my gosh, Travel Foreman.
Travel Foreman, yes.
Yes, and they did an Ares miniseries in 2006 that was super dope.
I'll
I
have to check
recommend
that
it.
out, man.
Yes.
But the Mighty
But
Avengers guys,
no,
that's a
I was
book.
gonna say that made me. I was so dope. That was another thing where look, Bendis took a dope character out of kind of obscurity and gave him spotlight. Ares,
Right,
like
right. And then in all of that, you had someone who kind of watched over everything, who watched
mhm.
over, and that was called the Illuminati. That consisted of Black Bolt, Professor X, Doctor Strange. Namor was there for a bit.
Yeah,
Was Tony Stark on that chain roll?
yes. Tony
Tony
was
Stark
there.
was there.
We
Was
had
it
Professor
five?
X, Namor, Strange,
Black Bolt?
Tony, and Black Bolt.
Five.
and and then Namor. No, we had six because there's one for each stone initially. So was there six stones, right?
Yeah, I cannot think who the last person was. It wasn't Cap. It
No,
was
Cap became later. They added him to the Illuminati late, like during the Hickman run.
um
But T'Challa.
right, T'Challa. Okay, Black Panther. And that eventually we know that sent Hulk to Plant Hulk, and that's where we got that, and then World War Hulk. But also it helped foreshadow Secret Invasion.
Yeah,
That was really the whole crux. That was a big crux of the plot, was the Illuminati don't even know who to trust. If
yeah.
Professor X can't see through who's a scroll and who's not, you're fucked. I'm sorry, you're fucked. So just that concept alone, what Bendis did great during this era of Marvel, you guys, was a lot of times readers today are so impatient because if you have this book was 5 people are sitting in a room talking about the fate of the Marvel universe. Nothing but that. It's like the Jedi Council. People in comics nowadays would find that as a boring issue or a dud.
Yeah.
That's some of the best shit you're ever gonna find.
Because Brennis is it bothers some people, but he has I don't know what you would call it, but when he's on his money, the whole conversation, people having a conversation is fun to read with him. Like it just seems like a natural conversation, but it would be like something like, "Hey," he'd be like, "Hey, yeah." He'd be like, "What's up?" He'd be like, "What's up with me?" He's like, "Yeah, you. Did you see that game today? What game?" It's just kind of like a natural conversation. It's not so much
Right.
he like will
But
be
it
like
also
giving
finds a way
exposition.
to drive the plot forward and kind
Absolutely,
of
yes.
explore different characters. And you
Yeah,
get to know them. You just get to know
yeah.
the
Their
characters.
personality ticks. Yep.
And I'm
Yep.
sorry, but we need to go back to that kind of style of storytelling. And I wish Bendis would do that in his Justice League. I wish he would. I love that whole thing of just that sitting around the table. That's what Jonathan Hickman is doing on the X-Men, and everyone's giving him shit for it. But I'm not going to segue into that.
I know I love Hickman. I love his X-Men. I hope he comes back. I hope he's not done with it.
Bendis was also a big part of Hickman's career.
Yeah, he start with Secret Warriors.
Yeah, so at the end of Secret Invasion, we're kind of going in order here, accidentally. We're going in order accidentally. But after Secret Invasion, you had the Dark Reign. The Dark Reign gave Hickman his first project, right?
I did not know that was Hickman's until doing research for this little segment.
Really? Because that's why I read Secret Warriors. Yo, that's one of my favorite books. Secret Warriors is one of my absolute favorite books. But
I think that's
Bendis was one of Hickman's mentors when he started getting into comic books, you guys. Hashtag blame Bendis station. Sorry, Fable, you've been replaced.
For today.
Oh, shit. Until the Blame Fable late night show comes back, or the Blame Fable Tonight show station comes back. Coming to you soon. We're going to get you a whole band, new Jimmy Fallon intro music. I love it. You're going to get Jimmy Fallon on your show, Fable. I guarantee it, bro. If you don't
believe it. Yeah. But I think Secret Warriors, not to go off topic, I think Secret Warriors is one of Hickman's more unique books. I love Secret Warriors, but compared to all his other Marvel projects, it's one of the unique projects.
I think, it's so niche. But a book that, 2 books we didn't really talk about. Secret War.
That kind of really, that's kind of an underrated one because that came out before his New Avengers.
Before almost everything else.
Yeah, that actually got his whole run started for New Avengers. All that stuff, like
introduced Miss
Daisy Johnson,
Chloe
Maria,
Bennett, Chloe Bennett on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. That girl is so attractive. Anyway,
Quake. She looked like Angelina Jolie in that comic. She was based off of that.
This is art, guys. You guys ain't gonna believe me when I say this. The interiors are by Gabriel Dell'Otto.
Right?
Which, oh my gosh, some of these interiors, yo, like the way he draws Spider-Man and Daredevil. Look at that.
In action, bro. It's clean.
In action, it's clean. It's painted. It is.
It's a gorgeous book.
And like, I'm sorry, but these info dumps are great because they look like actual Shield files. So like, if you were fans of Ultimate Alliance, the video game, on like the PS2, PS3, I was. I'm sorry.
I had it for PSP, but
yeah. That's where this stems from. That in Civil War. This book is so good. The whole premise is.
Sorry, my bad. I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I love seeing excited Link. The whole premise is Nick Fury has to get a team together because he's a colonel. He's not really a director. Maria Hill gets introduced in this book. Quake gets introduced in here, and you have to take a team to Latveria because Lucian von Bardas is trying to destroy the world and enable other supervillains. But he doesn't have the authorization of the U.S. government
because he's what Doom was like.
Doom wasn't involved. Not really.
No, not Doom, but Latveria at the time was like it would be like an act of war type thing if they would have. Yeah, so they had to do it off the books. It was like Black Ops style. And a lot of that team in there that he assembled ended up becoming this team for New Avengers. Like you have Wolverine,
except
Spiderman,
for Daredevil.
But he ended up showing up on the raft of issue 1. He almost became on it. Yeah, almost.
But this book literally put everyone against it. If you want to know why Nick Fury is the biggest douchebag in comics, this is it.
Yeah.
Another book we didn't talk about. Now, this is a book that our good friend Missing Link won in the Spine Ticks 1K giveaway. This is the book that Bendis is most known for. A little bit of show and tell right here. Big Herm, lick your chops, brother.
Station.
We got Ultimate Fallout number 4. This is
Thank you, Phil.
Pure Bendis creation of Miles Morales. And before we kind of get into his other bits like Iron Man, like Moon Knight, I want to talk about Miles and just what Miles means to people.
Absolutely.
I think that now I teach karate. I don't know if a lot of you guys know this. Before the hips, I was a martial arts teacher. And for years, I taught in a predominantly white area.
Right.
When I became like 17, 18, I could run a school on my own. I got moved out to a newer location, which was in a more of a minority Latino and African American, right? Now, this was right around the time Spider-Verse came out. So not a lot of people knew about Miles Morales until this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I worked
Not to interrupt you, I'm sorry, but this is a little off topic, but within theme. Into the Spider-Verse is almost a better representation of the character than the actual comic book. And I love it. I love the comic Bendis, Mr. Bendis. But yeah, he inspired a great movie. But sorry.
But this was the first time I've seen such a love for a superhero. Every kid that I taught that was either Latino or African American were Spider-Man, not Miles Morales. They were Miles Morales Spider-Man. But when I said, "What are you for Halloween?" Let's say Julian, for example. Like, Julian, what are you for Halloween? He said, "I'm Spider-Man." He didn't say I'm Miles Morales. He said, "I'm Spider-Man." And to me, that was so powerful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
What this book did, what this character has done for children, right? And for this generation of comic book readers, it gives you that fresh vibe. Miles is just full of great vibes.
Yeah.
You know?
He's like, it's cool because he wasn't a replica of Peter Parker, you know? Like, they're very distinct characters, very their own characters.
Right.
And he's just like a good kid, man. Just wants to, he loves his family, loves his friends. He just wants to help people out. He's just a good-natured kid, you know? That shares a lot of common themes with Peter Parker. He's not Peter Parker, and I loved it. Miles was one of the best creations in the last 20 years, easy.
Right. And I know his book is worth a ton of money right now, but it's worth, his character alone is worth than any price tag you will put on that book.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, Miles has a really bright future ahead of him. I know that a lot of people complain that, oh, he's taking up the mantle, but no, because here's the thing, a lot of the backlash on characters like Miles, or let's say Jane Foster being Thor's, people who didn't read it don't understand that the Silver Age character, or the character that had the status quo, was there every step of the way for the up and coming, right? And it's good to see Miles in the spotlight. Like, it's so refreshing to see that kind of energy, right? That kind of kid-friendly energy, just the way that Miles's brain thinks, right?
Yeah.
Next to Spider-Man's. You see a lot of maturity from Peter Parker, and you see a lot of, I wouldn't say immaturity, but you see a lot of young energy from Miles Morales.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It's refreshing. It's like, because I know a gripe with the Ultimate Universe, which I love, but it was for older readers, it's kind of like, I've kind of seen this before, even though it's a rehash and telling a new thing. Like, you got to tell a new young Spider-Man story without de-aging people's favorite, like Peter Parker, his own thing, still within the same vein as the Spider-Man stories of so long ago, just with a new feel. Like, I love Miles.
You can tell a cohesive Spider-Man story with 2 Spider-Men.
Yes.
It's possible. It's not difficult. So if you guys are not on the Miles bandwagon, get over it. He's here to stay.
He's worth it.
He's worth it. He's worth it. He's worth it. Station to that. But Link, what do you really think of Miles? Because I know I kind of rambled.
Oh no, it's all right. Yeah, fine. You said what I was thinking, man. He's a breath of fresh air. I love him as a character. I remember when he was coming out, like, I was excited, but I knew there was going to be a lot of backlash and shit like that. I didn't realize the impact he was going to have. It's just cool to see how I have watched him grow. And a lot of people don't realize is, like, he just recently passed his 10-year anniversary, just like last month.
Right.
And
that's insane.
How in 10 years, how much of an impact he's had.
I don't think there's been a character that has grown like that since the Silver and Golden Age.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, Wolverine. I think Wolverine's the exception, probably.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was gonna say I love X-23, but she's not even, she's kind of niche to an extent, there's not the average person.
Tom Taylor would beg to differ, but that's a different story.
Not neat, but I'm just saying, someone who's only seen the movies, like Miles is, like you said. But I think he's a great character. I was gonna say something. Sorry, brain fart.
But when you look at like what made Spider-Man work, is when you looked at kind of like and Station to Fable for saying this. When we were talking about this, Fable, like when you would see someone from New York back then who was poor, he was genuinely a white guy like Peter Parker.
Yes.
Is that what you were gonna say?
You were leading into that, but I was gonna say that when Spider-Man was announced for Civil War, I was someone who actually I wanted to see Miles be the live action Spider-Man. I respect they went with Peter Parker, and I understand they had to do that, but it was almost like Batman's origin. I think everyone knows Peter Parker's origin. We've seen it told many different times. It's American mythology at this point. Miles makes more sense. Like Fable was saying, like, statistically, realistically, if Spider-Man were to exist in New York in today's age, he would be a person of color, like whether it be Latino, Black, Asian. It wouldn't, it made more sense for Peter Parker back in the 60s, but yeah, the Fable was absolutely right. Miles speaks to these kids today, to this generation. It just makes sense. But yeah, I was almost a little disappointed when they announced that they were going with Peter Parker as their Spider-Man. Because initially they said that they were going to do Spider-Man, and people were kind of like, "What Spider-Man, Miles?" And then they came out and said, "No, we're gonna, we love Miles. We have plans for him." But
I think the thing about Miles, and they kind of realized this with utilizing the Bruce Banner the way they did. You play off modern stories, you don't have a lot. Like, what happens after Planet Hulk, right? When you send Hulk up to, for Ragnarok, you had that whole segment on Sakaar. And there really wasn't a whole lot more to do after, because you don't have the cast for World War Hulk. I'm sorry. You do now in 7 years. So maybe you'll get a World War Hulk. But what's after that? Immortal Hulk? You gonna do that shit? No.
I don't even think they could legally. But,
so I think that's why they did, just giving Miles a little bit more room to grow his stories. Now Miles is under a new wing. He's under Saladin Ahmed's care, and he's doing a great job with him. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more Miles stories that are going to be in the MCU, not from a spec perspective, from an actual kind of realism. You're going to see Bendis' work on the big screen. It's just a matter of time. It'll be in the next, I would say, 10 years. I don't know if it'll be in the next 5. I would be very surprised if over the next 5, but easily within the decade.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to see the Young Avengers on the big screen. Which also makes you guys stay tuned, because Missing Link is going to be leading Young Avengers deep dive in archives. So we're super excited about that. So we're going to be talking about that run, which also stemmed out of Avengers Disassembled a little bit, just trying to connect the dots for everybody. Other than that, Bendis has really just written a lot of movies. He's written Moon Knight 12-issue series, which was fantastic. It was well, what if Moon Knight has to move to America for a movie project, and he has to interact with the Avengers? What happens? And it was Bendis and Maleev. Bendis and Alex Maleev. Perfect. So if you guys want to get into Moon Knight, a lot of people are going to point you to Jeff Lemire. Maybe people are going to point you to Warren Ellis. If he's not canceled in their brain yet, which it is what it is, but his stories are still great. But I would actually point you into the Bendis run, because if you're going to look at Moon Knight as a character and whatever he's doing in the MCU, he's most likely going to interact with other characters. And that's where you get to see a lot of more modern Moon Knight interaction. So to get that, I would read it. It's gritty, it's fun. Matt Hollingsworth is a colorist. So Matt Hollingsworth is one of the best, along with Dave Stewart and Justin Ponzer. And I would even say Matt Wilson. You got the best of the best right there in Matt Hollingsworth. So I'm really excited to go back. Bendis also did Guardians of the Galaxy, which was a fun story. I believe the artist was Sarah Pachilli. I think it was still Sarah Pachilli.
I think the first arc was McNiven, wasn't it?
Yeah, McNiven and Sarah Pachilli. Yeah, you're right. I love McNiven. And then you had him he did Uncanny X-Men, which is fine, great. It's not my favorite Bendis story. His Iron Man I loved. Also bringing in and introducing Riri Williams.
Yes.
Another great character.
Yes.
But Bendis didn't really do a whole lot with Riri. It was more we're going to introduce Riri, but now that was when Bendis was doing Iron Man, he wrote the last bit of his Iron Man in the hospital. That was when Bendis wasn't doing very well. I forget exactly what he had, but he was in the hospital, and that's when he was still scripting the last bit of his Iron Man. Iron Man was one of his last projects before leaving for DC. After he took a break from his work, if everyone noticed, this was about 2016, so 2017. After Bendis really took a step back. So Iron Man was one of the last, and his Defenders were some of his last 2 projects.
Did you read did you read Siege yet?
Siege. Yeah, Siege is also part of the whole new Avengers, Mighty Avengers timeline. So following Secret Invasion, following the Dark Ages or Dark Reign. Not Dark Ages, that's a Tom Taylor book. Dark Reign, we're leading into Siege, which I have read. I just need to go back and read it in the thread that it came in. Right. Do you want to talk about Siege for a little bit?
Yeah, that was a fun run. It was just everything accumulated perfectly. So when Siege happened, you had heroes fighting against each other because of the Superhero Registration Act, which was because of Civil War. You had
Norman Osborn trying to get Norman Osborn the fuck out. That's great. That's basically what it was.
Yeah, because Norman Osborn was like Nick Fury after Secret Invasion, because the public believed he saved everyone.
Oh, motherfucker, eat my ass.
He's so manipulative, but he was like the new Nick Fury, and so he was he had been employing, this ties into Dark Avengers, but he had been employing villains as heroes. So it's the public would see Black Suit Spiderman, but it was really Venom or Matt Gargan at the time. Doc and Wolverine's son would dress like Wolverine publicly, but it's really, they were posing as heroes. Very Thunderbolts-esque. So this was accumulation. Cap, I think, was just coming back because Cap was missing for a while at the time. Tony was going through his own thing. Thor had been back for a little bit after being dead for a while. And
I
he was kind
remember
of
Thor came back and just completely destroyed Ares. I remember that bit.
or Century.
No,
Oh, you're talking
Ares.
about yeah, absolutely,
Thor
yeah,
came back. I believe it was like in issue 3 or 4 Siege. He came back, just completely
yeah.
destroyed him.
No, because that isn't that when oh yeah, no, they were fighting first, and that was before Century came in.
Ares.
Yeah,
Ares was on Norman's side.
yeah. Oh, well, he was paying the good money. Ares was
Yeah,
always because he
Ares
was
was
one of
about
the
the
first
bucks.
people to step up to Norman when he realized shit had gone too far. That's
Right.
why Century came in and ripped him apart because Norman was like, "Yo, Century, handle my lightweight," you know.
Right.
But because he had said something, he's like, "Norman, I told you if you lie to me, I was gonna rip your head off with my hands," and so he was keeping good on that promise. But Norman was sissy. It was just a fun. It was like this had all been leading up to it since Bendis's New Avengers issue 1.
Right.
The seeds of mistrust, heroes fighting against each other. It was finding like all these heroes that had been arguing with each other, and it's just like no one trusts each other. Everyone's an enemy nowadays. They finally like, yo guys, we gotta get back to business, and it was like back to heroes versus bad guys, good guys versus
Right.
bad guys. Like it was great epic run. You had Oliver Coipel on art again, so it was kind of Bendis started his whole almost. Nah, at Secret Wars,
He worked with a
started.
bunch of different artists. He worked with like Delato. He worked with Maleev. He worked with
Everybody.
Lionel Francis Yu, David Finch, you name him, Jim Shang,
Yeah.
Lee Weeks.
Yeah. It was cool because that
Nick
was
Raven.
like House of M was his first event with New Avengers with Oliver Coipel, and so Siege was his last event written by him. With so it was cool to have the artist start and end with the same artist.
I'm with you. Yeah, guys. I hope all these links will be in the description below. Most of them because YouTube can't allow me all those characters, but I will fit as many links as I can, at least to the first volumes. So if any of these stories interests you, I guess you have a whole Amazon shopping list or support your LCS, you can order through them because that's how we really want to do business. But yeah, guys, Bendis, I'm telling you, go back and read his Marvel work. It is some of the best stuff ever. This is the longest Crisis on Infinite Rants we've had so far, so thank you guys for sticking around for that.
Shout out to Powers, Jinx. All that. I know Robbie would be disappointed if we didn't recommend those.
Yes, I have yet to read his indie work.
Okay.
I think today's topic was let's kind of talk about his Marvel work. Right. But his indie work, I've heard nothing but groundbreaking things.
Yeah, it's worth it. Like everything, except DC.
Right. Once again, you guys, you can find me over at Comics Kings, Stefan over at Missing Lynk. Our links will be in the description below as well. Make sure you guys sub up to the YouTube. Give this video a good old thumbs up if you like what you're seeing. If you don't like Bendis, give it a thumbs up because you really like seeing Link on the show. Other than that, Creators Corner, it's rolling. We got Danny and Dan Watters coming on for Arkham City this Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. After that, we have James DeMatteis coming on. We have Matt Fraction and Terry Dodson. We have Chris Claremont. We have Patrick Gleason. We have a lot of people coming in the pipeline. Kelly Zudakonic, Phil Jimenez, all the way down. Russell Donovan.
Nice.
This is just stuff that I can talk about, you guys. And plus, whatever I do at Baltimore, check us out. Creators Corner is a lot of fun. Weekly wrap up is our Monday show at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. That's our comic book review show. We just talk about the books we read over the past week, and recap what happened in them and break them down, tell you what you need to know about them, and review them. It's a fun show. We have creators on sometimes, so a lot of times returning guests,
friends of the show,
coming on for that. And then the other shows we do. What are the other shows we do here? We do archives, which
yes, we have it.
That's it. That's everything. Station, you guys. Thank you guys for checking out this video. Let's go hang out with Nick.